The time is 6:32, calling this planning and development meeting to order. We're here to discuss two topics. First, just exploring opportunities for the city to invest in solar. There's a few different avenues that we potentially take, as I understand so far. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, kind of get a sense of how how these ideas might sound. If some, all, none, some good. So I'll enumerate those with you, and then we can discuss. I also wanted to have it not a big conversation, just to be clear. I have no knowledge of any plans to engage in annexation by the city, but I think the city of Nelsonville is on the up and up, and I think it would be smart for this committee to be familiar with what the Ohio Revised Code has to say about municipal annexation. And so I've been reading that. It's a beast, but I'll share kind of how I'm understanding that process works, and we can discuss that a little bit and just kind of have that in our heads as we move forward. Sound good?
Yes, sir. Last night also from the Finance Committee, there was further discussion about the McDonald's sign. And it got booted over to this committee to further discuss about the size of the sign and the requirements, just to make sure we were good. So I just want to throw that on your radar.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
Okay.
When that time comes, let me know.
Yeah, we'll do that today. We can talk about that as well.
Great.
Cool. All right. So solar. So I've talked to a few different people. Some folks in Chansey, some folks in Athens, at Third Sun, done some reading, and there's a lot of different avenues that we could potentially take if we wanted to invest in solar as a city. I don't think I need to go real in depth about why it's worthwhile, but it is a good investment. It's not a slam dunk, like going to make us a lot of money, but it's very safe. You can't really lose money as long as your panels are insured and the sun is shining. We're just at the point, the technology is there that, 15, 20 years max, on a 30-year lifespan of a module system, you're getting your monies back by 20 years, and then the rest is gravy. So that's just the amount of power that they generate. It's beneficial also because you're inflation proofed. To the extent that you generate electricity by solar, you're immune to rate hikes. So 10% of your electricity is coming from your solar panels. That 10% can't be dictated by the power company.
Does the state or the Fed get a piece of that?
No. I mean, if to the extent that we use net metering, the utility company, if we enter into an agreement with the utility company that did give them a cut, which right now that isn't how it works. Like you get 100% credit for the kilowatt hours you generate. So no, if we generate 100,000 kilowatt hours at our water treatment plant, that's 100,000 kilowatt hours that we won't be billed for by the utility company.
And to back up, what the lifespan, roughly 30 years?
Typically, yeah, they're rated for 30 years. You can often count, and then they slowly become less effective. Sure. So it isn't like they turn off overnight.
But it'll pay for itself in how many?
15 to 20, depending on
roughly half the life of the.
Yeah. So like I said, it's not like some amazing, incredible investment where we're going to make a lot of money.
No, but if it's safe for the environment, I think it's important for us to get on board with that, to the extent that it's not a source of liability for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it needs to be safe. We also, want to think about, it's also an opportunity to support local companies, to buy American. So there's other good things that come out of it. And lastly, I know there's some ambition to become something of a bedroom community. I know if we want to attract younger families, younger demographics, it's a priority to be climate conscious. And so that's a way for the city to be potentially a more attractive destination for young families. So the three kind of pathways, and there's probably more that I've learned about so far. One of them is very obvious. So roof mounted systems on city owned properties. So it could be City Hall, it could be the water treatment plant, it could be our new sewage facility, it could be the pool, and depending on how much we want to invest, we could get anywhere from 5% to 80 or 90% of our consumption covered for those various properties. All of them have their ups and downs, so I'll enumerate those a little bit. The water treatment plant is very attractive. not only because it consumes a lot of energy. I only got a bill for 1 month, so to get like really good, numbers, I need to see all 12 months. So I will be requesting those here in the future. But extrapolating out from 1 month, and I'm assuming that the consumption is pretty static for that kind of place. We're talking about around 900,000 kilowatt hours per year. And so to put some perspective, to purchase there's a water treatment plant in some central Ohio city that had a 700,000 kilowatt per hour consumption for the year. So a little bit smaller than ours. They spent $168,000 for a ground-based array that covered 100,000 kilowatt hours. So, in your mind, I'm thinking $170,000 would get us a little bit more than 10% of our consumption over 30 years. That number tracked so far?
Say that one more time.
So a $170,000 ground-based array, and you can put some panels up on a roof, would be about 12% of our consumption at the water treatment plant. So I only tell you that number because just to give a general sense of like the kinds of cost benefit that we're going to be looking at. If we wanted to cover all of the consumption for the water treatment plant, we're talking about a couple $1 million. And we would also have to have a field big enough to build a ground-based array.
That was gonna be my question.
So we'd have to purchase land. It's also more expensive to do ground-based arrays because you have to run the wiring. It's not just like right there on the building. So there's roof mounted and there's ground mounted systems. Ground mounted systems are more expensive, but the sky's the limit because as long as you have space, you can, put them anywhere. The advantage to looking at things like a water treatment plant or the sewage treatment plant is that the Ohio Public Works Department will provide funding. Like you can apply for funding, infrastructure funding for those projects because it's related to water and sewer. So that makes it an appealing option. City Hall is appealing in some respects because, it's, public facing and it's a building where a lot of stuff happens. But 30 years is a long time to commit to being in one building. And unless we were going to sell it to somebody who would want solar panels on the building, or if we were going to use this building for other city activities, it's potentially a riskier investment.
I think I'd be more apt to go after our big capital, plans than if
Yes.
you make your own home.
Yep.
Right.
Go ahead.
Do they depreciate in value over time as you get closer?
Yes.
To the like,
Yeah. So once you hit 30 years, you start to see a dip in their and how productive they are. I think that it probably, I don't think we really know how long they're going to go because every year these things improve. And so we don't really get to see what, it's like a new car. You don't really know if it's going to go 150,000 miles or 300,000 miles. So it for sure will, especially as it concerns real estate or resale value.
they are, that's where, yeah.
Mhm.
Do we have
And-
any?
A follow-up to that is, maintenance on them?
There's not a lot. I have panels on my home. I've had them for 5 years and you just clean them,
Okay.
occasionally, but, you would get them insured and, so if there's a really bad hailstorm or something that could cause damage and, no trees should be falling on these things. If a tree can fall on it, we probably shouldn't have it there in the first place because it's going to be blocking the sun. So good question. Anything else?
No.
How much space would a big array like that take?
For the water treatment plant?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
We don't have it.
I don't think we have it. Yeah, we'd have to buy, we'd certainly have to buy land. And because it's in a floodplain,
There's no rooftop option that would come close to.
yeah, so 4,000 square feet would maybe, again, these are rough calculations because I don't know the exact consumption, but I think that if we covered that roof, all 4,000 square feet, and I don't know is it flat or is it pitched?
Barely pit. It's
Okay.
a very flat roof.
All right,
it's
so there's a
minimal
little
pitch.
bit more than with the pitch. I'm guessing it would be somewhere around 5% of our consumption.
We also have
which
another
isn't
building
any-
out there
nothing.
too. There's a garage building we could put more on out there.
Yeah. So there's that. The pool is an attractive option in all likelihood. So the downside to the pool is that, it doesn't do anything in the winter. But winter is not a high production time for solar energy anyway. The high production hours coincide exactly with the high consumption hours, on the city pool.
Is there a storage element to that?
Um,
So the panels are generating the electricity.
mm,
Is there a way to store that? Is there any kind of
Yeah.
long-term storage for that energy that can be used?
So you can. So typically how people handle this problem is that they do not, a residential or commercial solar project does not store any electricity because you need a battery and you need a special system that can essentially lock off your own private grid from the whole grid. And the reason for that is if the power's down, they got guys working on the line. They don't want somebody accidentally putting electricity onto the line and somebody gets hurt. So it's a lot more expensive. You have to replace the battery every 5 to 10 years. So usually what people do is something called net metering. And so, so the utility company adds this special module to your meter. And when you put electricity onto the grid, so when you generate electricity at your home or the pool house or whatever, and you produce more than you consume, your meter starts to go backwards, so it can go negative, and that's credited to you. And other people in the community will, benefit from that electricity. And then when you're consuming during non-production hours, you just eat into that allowance that you generated for yourself. And so that's what I was talking about with does the government or anybody get a cut? Currently the way net metering agreements are organized, it's 100%. So if that were to change, that's a vulnerability. But there would be a lot of people who would push back on such a change. So that's how that works. So storage is not a realistic option. It's really for people who are really extreme and want to get off the grid kind of thing. Cool. Any other questions about ground mounted or roof mounted systems? Yeah, so it's an investment, overall, the investment stays pretty static regardless of how big it is. But 15 years, you're breaking even. You're gonna pay less in your electricity bill, but you're gonna be paying, whether it's, I guess if you're financing, that is. If you're financing, zero down or there's some kind of other programming, you're gonna be just paying that off, and it ends up being zeroing out. But after you pay it off, then you start to see, savings in however, cut by whatever percentage of power that you're no longer consuming.
So in a cost benefit analysis, I'm thinking in my mind right now, the biggest benefit is just being conscious of the environment and being able to say that as a city, we're doing something to help reduce the carbon emissions, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's also assuming that we get no grant funding or any kind of additional assistance. And that's part of how you factor in is if you get, because there's a lot of money out there for these kinds of projects, and that's where you can start to see some other
I'm all for
incentives.
that. If we can grab money that's
Sure,
available and use that for that purpose, that's great. Here's my other concern.
Yeah.
I don't know that we want to be purchasing land to put arrays for something we're looking at 10% of our consumption. I'm wondering where the cost benefit there is. At what point do we start taking away from the environment in order to support the environment?
Yeah, and it wouldn't be my recommendation, certainly not at this stage, to go and buy a field to build an array. That brings us to the third option though. I don't know what kind of property holdings the city has, but if we have some gross old field that nobody cares about or uses, you can look into something called a community solar program. And so how this works is it's a model where essentially you share people can opt in, so citizens of the city could opt in and they would get energy at a certain rate from these panels. And so usually you get two bills. You would get your standard AEP utility bill, and then you get your Nelsonville Community Solar Program bill. And the whole point is that we're going to be able to offer a bill that's slightly, like a rate that's slightly lower. We're not going to be able to cover all of their consumption, of course. But that's another approach. So I think Chancey's exploring something like this. I think Athens exploring something like this. So that's something to think about if we do find ourselves with a piece of land that isn't productive or valuable for other purposes. That's something we could look at. And I just have no idea I don't know if you have a sense of like what kind of stuff we own in that department.
I try to get rid of anything big like that, so we don't really have much. But if I could maybe transition into, so today we had a sewer plant meeting and we, the EPA funding agent was on the phone. And I asked them, because we were actually doing pretty well as far as time and budget, and the contingency really hasn't been tapped into. So I asked them about adding this to it, and they're not anti it at all. So did you talk to Amy?
Yeah.
So they're actually going to get a hold of Amy and start getting some options to add solar with our existing grant money that we have and putting it on the sewer plant.
Great.
What kind of contingency money do we have left?
A lot. So I don't remember the numbers, but contingency for 17 million. So what is that, 20%, 10%? Yeah, somewhere like that. It's, not 20%, but even 5% is still a lot.
Sure.
The company we have doing the sewer plant has done very well. And so they've stayed out of it for the most part. All the major pieces are in, and
I just want to make sure we're past the possible surprise stage where we do spending that.
all the major pieces, well, so it's not one of the, right, I guess what I'm saying is, this isn't spin now, this is, we talked to the electrician and let him know that what our intent is. The contractor is good with the intent, the engineer's fine, and EPA is willing to entertain the quote. So we're at the point of building the quote and present it. So we're still probably, completion right now is February. It's been moved up.
Oh, wow.
So the original completion was November.
Also, we need to get tracking on this then.
Right, so we're that close to the end. The only reason why we're not completing in November is because of the switch gear that has to be custom built for the emergency generator. That one piece in the critical path is the only thing not done, and it's keeping it from being done.
Wow.
Everything else is on, actually they're ahead of schedule on everything else. So all the critical pieces, except for that one piece, is here already on site. And they had $25,000 worth of copper get stolen off site Monday, but they found replacements.
At the sewer treatment plant site?
Yeah, the new one. So they're cooking with Crisco out there. So they are doing very well. So with this, that's now the time to,
I think we found the direction.
right.
What's the production time for these solar panels? Are they available? I know just with the supply chain crunch.
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I know that, well, I don't know. I've been told that the Inflation Reduction Act has some provisions for municipal investment into solar. I was told that, and then I tried to find something that said that officially. I can't, but it's hard to tell with these things, like what exactly are, and these are massive bills. So that's another thing to keep our eyes on is like, are there additional incentives coming from the federal government? I need to do more legwork to see, how much money there is in the Ohio Public Works department for solar investment for water and sewer, because that's another thing that we could take advantage of as a part of this. Yeah, in my mind, the three most realistic candidates out of all the options we've talked about are roof mounted systems on the water treatment plant, even though that's only going to be a small percentage of the consumption in that building. It's still something, and at the end of the day, whether you're going to get the same rate of return, whether it's a small investment or a big one. It isn't as flashy to say, look, our water treatment plant's 100%, but we shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Right.
I don't think ground mounted systems are worthwhile, but I think water and sewer, and then I think the pool is another one to consider. I just need to get because it really just comes down to like annually, like what are we looking at? With the way that consumption production lines up at the pool, it should be a good spot to do solar panels, but the question is how much do you lose by those panels essentially doing nothing in the winter? So I'll continue to look into that.
Now, you're looking at replacing the pool roof.
And that's when we would do that.
I was gonna say,
Yes.
integrate that with the pool roof.
Absolutely.
And, the quote I just
Yeah.
pulled up was 33,000.
To do the roof.
Yeah, and it's a standing seam roof. Now, with that said, I found out the company, or I got the name of the company that did the sewer plant roof. So Adam is getting a hold of that same company to come give us a quote. It would just be nice to have the same company with the same warranty on multiple city buildings. So I can't see it being a whole lot different, but, it should be similar in cost for that as well. Just kind of gee whiz information. And then there was something else. So pumps is our biggest consumption of energy, period. We have pumps out the wazoo. They cost a fortune. We got pumps everywhere. We got pump stations. We got
Lift station.
the lift stations. So that probably ought to be the next thing we look into. It's gonna be on a much smaller scale, but if we can get big solar panels above, some of our pump stations are buried in trees. It wouldn't be feasible, and they're near private property where we won't be able to get them out. But we also have pump stations that are not buried in trees. And if we can get those covered in solar as well, that'll drastically, here in City Hall, we have lights and normal admin type stuff. It's where the pumps are, the electric pumps pump in water. That's where we have all of our consumption. And, we're pumping water out of the ground, treat it, push it, and then now we're pushing it back to the sewer plant, and we're pushing it to process it back into the river.
Wouldn't it be better though, just to have it on the roof, since we're just adding back to the electric grid, rather than have one at each pump? Since we have this roof, did I understand that correctly?
Well, we have an account and a meter at every single,
Right.
I was gonna ask, so do we have individual meters for every pump?
we do,
Okay.
well,
So-
every pump station.
Yeah, that's what I mean, every lift station.
We
Okay.
do.
Yeah, I saw the bill for one lift station, so I just wasn't sure how that works. Okay.
Just have to figure out what it would take to run one of those, whether we could handle big enough to do that, I guess. We have enough space for each one.
Because a lot of all those, we're in the process of switching them over, but, they're all at least 240, but we're switching them all over to 480. So for example, this one right here is about to be 480. Now, would it be feasible to put a big solar panel right here? Probably not. They would not like that, I'm sure. So not a good option, but we have, some that are out in the middle of nowhere, like right down here in front of the water plant. It's in the front of the water plant, big ugly panel in front of the water plant is not gonna hurt anything. We can do that.
Right.
But we have probably half of them. We can do door run. We can do them up in door run.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna care. They're in the
Sure.
middle of nowhere,
Yep.
we can, so probably half of them, we can do big ugly
Yeah.
solar panels.
If you could get me the addresses for those, I'll get the bills for all of the pump stations, and then we can kind of rank them according to how ugly they are, like how ugly they would be, and,
Yeah,
the
I got a
realistic
spreadsheet.
yeah, sweet, so that'd be good. So I think first step is really just to look for incentives and, explore if sewage is already looking promising, that's great. Look for additional incentives to make throwing some panels up on water treatment good, and then I need to look at, the pool and see if that's realistic.
On those pump stations,
Yeah.
is there if we're gonna put something like a solar panel on a pump station out in the middle of nowhere, is there a risk of vandalism?
So they're all, fenced in, and we are there every day checking on them.
Okay.
So there is a risk, yes, absolutely, but we are at the pump stations every day, and we are slowly, getting cameras on them. My end game is to have, cellular cameras on them. And, so we're getting there, but the guys are there every single day doing daily checks on them.
Another thing, the solar gig, I brought up Scott before, what about streetlights? We can replace the streetlights that we're paying for, and add more without the added cost of work of having to run.
Yeah, I mean.
And that reminds me on the pool house, the lights in the park also are in that same, on that same meter. So that would also fall under that umbrella.
I love solar lights. I've got like 10 of them around my house.
I'm all for investing in the solar energy as long as we get a return on investment.
Absolutely, yeah, yep. Cool, well, I'll keep looking into it, and then, yeah, I just wanted to, I don't think that community solar, or certainly not buying property for the purpose of it, but if we do find ourselves coming into some crappy land and we don't know what to do with it, it's a potential option, so something to keep in our back pocket.
Yeah, down that avenue, through the land bank, some of those properties could be
Yeah,
an
that's
option.
interesting, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
But
Granted,
the
they,
bad
a
part
lot
of
of what
that
they get
is-
is residential, so that's, you know, we'd have to kind of, if it's like somebody's house that was real run down and kind of, you know, in the holler or something out of the way, then that might be where,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the downside is it takes it out of the tax.
Right.
yes.
The
Yeah.
possibility of
Yeah.
another home being
Yeah.
built.
Cool,
Which I don't know, you have enough empty land to be able to really make a difference with community at that point anyway.
yeah, no,
It's
yeah,
just something to think about.
Well, we do have actually, we do have a bunch of land up by the second reservoir. Up on top of the hill by Grover, or top of Grover Hill, Grover Street. The big reservoir up there, we own that whole hilltop.
oh, yeah, that's like right next to my house.
Yes. We own that, you know, the reservoir is up
Yep,
there.
yeah,
We own that
that
whole
crazy
hill.
steep hill.
Yep, we own all that up
How
there,
much property is up there?
a bunch. Can't give you a number, but I can tell you a
Like
bunch.
acres and acres and acres.
Mhm.
That the sun shines on.
You have to, I mean, we'd have to log it. But it would be a big hilltop that,
What, that'd be a story. City logs hill to put in solar panels.
Yeah.
I'd be Facebook famous again.
Yeah, I'm just looking ahead here. I'm just looking ahead.
Put it on Facebook.
So, yeah, I'm not looking for any like quick action on this, just to start thinking about it, and in particular to keep in mind when we're replacing roofs on city buildings, that's a really ideal time to make this move. So, you know, with Full House at 25 years and other buildings that we might consider in the future, that's a nice kind of timing consideration. Any other questions about that? Cool. So yeah, I'll continue to do the research that I've been talking about. Yeah, so like I said, I don't think there's any plans for annexation, but I was trying to understand it, so I thought I'd just share a little bit about what I've come to understand about the Ohio Revised Code as it relates to annexation, and see if you guys know anything about this, because it's kind of a beast. You know, it's chapter 709 of the Ohio Revised Code, and there's a whole bunch of, I mean, there's 50 sections that concern annexation. And the real basic like path or how this thing works, as I understand it, is that property owners for a contiguous piece of land sign a petition. If it's unanimous, then it's a fairly straightforward process. You essentially, well, I'll get into that. But if it's not unanimous, if you have a majority, then you have, you know, the annexation process begins, and it goes to the county board of commissioners, and they have hearings, and then it gets real messy, and there's all sorts of unique considerations, whether it's regarding firefighting services or water or multiple counties or fee schedules or all sorts of stuff. But the main way that it happens is that people sign a petition who live in the area saying, yes, they want to join a municipality. And so that's like news to me. I just had no idea. I mean, that makes sense. It seems good that people would have a say in whether or not they get to be a part of a municipality. But the key is if it's unanimous, so if all of the property owners for an area say they want to do it, then it streamlines the process significantly. And so I know that there are some properties potentially that might apply to as it relates to the city of Nelsonville and its surrounding municipality. So that's what I understand about it. Scott, I don't know, like, if you know anything about how this process works,
Not
or
really.
if you guys understand it. So I think eventually we're gonna need to talk to some lawyers about it, to really understand it. But I do think that it's something to start thinking about in terms of, you know, the persuasion aspect of it. If there's some parts of the community that we really feel like there'd be a lot of mutual benefit in this happening. Yeah.
Speaking of which,
Yeah.
what are the top 3 areas that we would be interested in annexing?
Number one would be the old prison.
And who is taking that over?
The-
Isn't there some agency or something that's gonna be moving in there?
The state's rebuilding it. And
Okay.
they're going to turn it into a women's rehab and jail.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
belongs to Hawken County.
It does belong to Hawken County, yeah.
Okay, well, that's significant. We don't have the cooperation as well.
Correct. I have talked to one of the Hawken County commissioners, and she wasn't, when I talked to her last, it was several months ago. And since then, her fellow commissioners have become ill, and I haven't bothered her since then, just because I figure she's overwhelmed. She just needed to get more information on it, and she wasn't for or against. She just needed to get more information on it and understand, the biggest thing. So in the past, when the prison was up there before, they paid the city, they paid the out-of-town rate for water. This would make the water 1/3 cheaper for them because the county is responsible for paying the water bill to us. And they also paid for fire services. And of course, if they did not annex into the city, we would have to negotiate a price for fire. And then, or not, and then they can get their fire services from wherever. And which I believe that's Ward Township, so I'm not sure really what the status of Township Fire Department is right now. And I don't keep up on that stuff, but so that's where that's at. And then from there, I think it would be more of a polling, if you will, to talk to folks. Clearly, there's no interest from some of our really close neighbors, as we learned with the latest sewer debacle, which I could probably explain to you afterwards. But there was an opportunity to extend the sewer down to Nelsonville at no cost to the city or to them. And they balked, and the county commissioners blocked it. So they passed up on free sewer.
We would also qualify for some special kinds of funding if the landfill, if part of the landfill became inside the city limits, is that correct?
Correct, or touching.
A touching, yeah. So
That would
anything
be-
that would facilitate that, what is it?
Scenic lane.
Yeah.
So if we went scenic lane towards scenic lane, so out there, I don't know. I do know that there is a couple developers going that direction. They're building cabins out there that don't have anywhere to put septic, and they would love to have city sewer because they don't have any options. And I do know, just from talking to some people that I'm friends with on scenic lane, that they would like to have city sewer because their septics are failing. Now, I don't, clearly you have to have the majority. I don't know if the majority exists or not to go that direction. So I don't know the answer. Yeah, there is.
Well, if we know somebody who's enthusiastic about it, they should be the person to,
Right.
spearhead a petition.
The A word's very touchy,
Yeah.
especially on TV. People will come out with their pitchforks and knives, and I'll be on Facebook again before you know it. So I'm a little gun shy, if you will.
Well, and I mean, I'm just to make it clear, like, I just want to persuade people to do it. I'm not gonna, we can't, like, it has to be a petition from the people
Right.
who want to be a part of this community, and I think that there's good reasons to want to be a part of the city of Nelsonville, and there's gonna be more good reasons coming down the line.
And I think the only thing we can do is show them what the advantage.
Yes, that's right. So whether that's water services or fire services or what have you, yeah. Cool, any other questions about this? Really, I just wanted to put it on everybody's radar. I'm trying to understand this chapter 709 annexation of municipal corporations. Please, take a look at it if you have time and help me understand it. But I think it's going to be an important thing moving forward for the city. Okay, cool. Want to talk McDonald's sign?
Sure.
Just advertising, I guess.
Go ahead, Mr. Childs.
Okay, and this is just committee work here. I think we can save a lot of time and just agree that it's a good idea. I don't see anything wrong with McDonald's putting a sign in the pool for 2 years at $800.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
All right, sounds good.
And I'm willing to put that before council if that needs to.
That's an easy one. Now, do we want to do like we talked last night and make it 1 year for 500, or if they buy 2, we just give it to them for 800?
So you've been talking to them.
Yes.
What is their understanding of the arrangement? 800 for a year or 800 for 2 years?
800 for 2 is what they want.
And 2 being the
Next
remainder
year.
of this season and this year.
No,
And the next year and the following
Oh,
year.
okay.
I mean, because they haven't even ordered the sign.
Yeah,
yet.
no, yeah. I mean,
we
that's
shut
fair. I just didn't know. Okay.
And I think at that price, we could probably persuade other businesses now to join in as well.
I mean, that becomes the other issue is, do we have boundaries here? How many-
Yeah, we just need to like pick some slots and say like this
Right.
fence,
Yeah.
whatever, the west fence
We have
is
some-
advertising
some of the
space
spots open, yeah.
and, because.
Or they look like, we put them on the lifeguards and they look like NASCAR drivers.
Hey,
What do you think, Greg?
Yeah,
We
first
have
class.
council shirts. What's that? We have council shirts with sponsors.
There you go. There you go.
at least they know who owns us, right?
That's it. I always thought that Congress people want to have it.
But,
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I brought up last night, I believe we have a sign ordinance,
Oh, we do?
and I think that should be reviewed before we go too far,
Absolutely.
just to make sure.
If there's an ordinance,
Yeah,
absolutely.
oh, yeah.
So are you saying there's something other than what the code says?
I don't know, it seems like I remember there's about, and it's more of, signs along Canal Street, business signs, the setback, the size and all that.
Because I have the sign permit here that cites the code,
Okay,
and we went through the code.
good.
And I had Jordan go through the code, I should say. So what the citation that the permit says, requires a permit for all to be issued prior to the installation for all permanent signs, including ground signs not attached to a building or structure, wall signs attached to the wall of a building or structure, and off-site advertising signs, all signs located on the lot other than where a building business activities principally occurs. Permit application must include a scaled drawing / site plan indicating property lines, the location of the sign, and the ground or wall, sign dimensions, and for ground signs, the height from grade to the bottom of the top, from the bottom to the top. Dimensions and or locations must be illustrated in order to determine face area, maximum height, and minimum clearance. Signs shall not create a traffic hazard, prevent free ingress and egress in the site, or ingress to the site, be obscene, create a public nuisance, contain lights, exceed 10-foot candles per square foot, be roof mounted or attached to a tree pole or utility pole. And it just talks about incomplete sign, incomplete application. So, and that was 0516. So let me go down here and just see if there's anything else. Sign regulations. They should not be in street frontage, lot parcels. They shall not exceed total 350 square feet. So that's 8 by 10.
80.
Okay. It says, secondary class A sign, each separate business establishment shall be allowed 1 square foot, each sign, that's not gonna apply. Class B signs not apply. Non-conforming, nope. Just says they shouldn't have more than 10 square feet without a permit for non-structural sign consisting of letters, numerals, or ornamentation. I can't see anything in here that's a showstopper that I wouldn't have the authority to override. But I don't even see anything that I need to override.
How big is the McDonald's sign again?
8 by 10. While you're looking for that, Justin, is the quote that you gave is a market rate, 500 a year for a sign like that?
Yeah, roughly. I talked to Mr. Porter, who does a lot of advertising and things like that. He said that's what he would roughly expect to pay.
So I don't know that it would be unreasonable for us to ask for $1,000 for 2 years. The question becomes, you know, what is our relationship with McDonald's? I mean, I've heard it said that they do quite a bit.
They do to buy a lot of pool passes.
Yeah.
And a lot of things.
So I think we have to take that into consideration as well. And, you know, and if that is the case, then maybe what was originally proposed is the way to go.
I think it is. Just like I said, you know, from what they do, they approached us, this will actually, this will cover our speaker costs.
Right.
Things
And
like
they
that.
give back to the community,
They
so I don't know that that would be unreasonable for us to just accept it the way it is and.
I'd be okay
So-
with that.
Accept it the way it is, and then maybe just say like 40 square feet is $400 a year. And,
Yeah, because we want to be consistent.
Yeah.
with-
and so then we would just, that could be the price for the next 2 years, and then after that,
Should it be then $10 a square foot?
yeah, that probably is reasonable, yep.
Now, would you want the signs to be all uniform?
I mean, that's a lot of big signs.
It is.
I think we probably just need to reserve the right to veto the sign, you know, like we just want to see the sign before, and if there's
I just. hate to
some
have that.
reason that we would not want it there, and if it's obscene or,
Well,
not that McDonald's is gonna
I
do
just
this.
hate to have a hodgepodge inside the pool.
Sure.
I think it goes back
Needs to be
to
square.
we need to determine how much square footage we want to use for advertising.
Sure, yeah, no, I think we should just pick a, whatever, the
Right.
west fence,
Yeah, just leave it at that.
and, you know, put some margin on either, you know, 4 feet on either side, so it's not right up to the edge, and say, there we go.
Like newspaper ads, you can sell either a half or an entire panel.
The Elks, I looked at it too, because after the wind concern, the Elks fence is probably the best one to go with, because they actually have a solid wood fence on the backside of it. Probably 5 feet of the 8 feet that we have, which will help considerably with the wind concern, which I thought was a very good concern to bring up.
Right.
I mean, we still need to have them address the wood, or, you know, the wind, but
Right.
that'll help significantly, I think, with the protecting the banners.
And we may want to consider language, since this is going to be on a city property, that should something happen to the sign, we're not liable.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, they should. So, no, I think those are all good things. It needs to have, you know, wind protection, should have, we recommend wind protection, but if there's damage to the sign, they're responsible for replacing it.
Now, for this $800, they're buying the sign. and having
Oh,
it
absolutely.
facilities, Right, so there you go.
Yeah.
So I think Mr. Porter had thought that for $500 a year, he was buying the sign as well for that, so I think it all works out, money wise.
$10 square foot. So so since this one's 8 by 10, if we want to keep it uniform, what's the half size of that then? 4 by 5?
4 by 5.
So those are your two options.
Yep.
That way we can,
A little smaller as well as the big ones.
4x5, or 8x10 are your two options.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go. Yeah.
So that way we can keep them uniform over there.
Yep.
Which brings to, well, I'll say that after the meeting.
Okay.
We don't want people advertising, let's say, alcohol sales at a pool.
Sure, yeah.
So-
Right.
Yeah, no alcohol, no tobacco.
So we may want to approve the language of the sign.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah, we need to.
which with the side ordinance, we have that already in place, right?
I don't know.
I mean, what you read off in the code there basically says the same thing, that it can't be obscene or.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely quote in accordance with Nelsonville City Code. Additionally, no alcohol, no tobacco must,
Yeah, because we're dealing with minors at the pool.
yeah, you can say it's gotta have my approval or
Yeah.
not,
There you go.
city manager approval, you know,
Exactly.
so, yeah.
The no-brainer things.
Yes. Well, never assume.
You gotta say it or.
You've lived here long enough, Doug, you know.
Are we all set? Anything else?
I'm good.
All right, thank you, everybody. The time is 7:18. That is the end of our planning and development committee.